Namaskar. Today is June 23rd, Wednesday, and welcome to Daily Global Insights with Sree and Sree. This is episode 188. We have a lot to cover and shall jump straight to global news. In global news, Xi Jinping demands loyalty from top Chinese officials as rumors spread about alleged high-ranking defector. So it is true. And in fact, you will get an idea that it was true because of what happened in that one meeting between US and Chinese officials that took place in Alaska. With more on this, let's go over to Sridharji. Sridharji, welcome to the program and your thoughts on this, sir.
Good morning to everybody on this bright sunny day here in East Coast of United States, and I probably early hours in West Coast. My thoughts are we have been hearing a fair amount of rumbles in the CCP. I think we are beginning to witness the first signs. I think more fallout would come as even the COVID revelations begin to step out, or COVID revelations begin to come out into the open. So I don't think there is content within the party in terms of this unilateral approach. That's one thing. The second is that no one has perpetually ruled the CCP or the China for they all retire at the end of the two terms. This is another thing that's rumbling that's going on. And as you rightly point out, more is likely to come out into the open.
North Korea rejects Biden administration offer for talks without preconditions, while Kim's sister says US is interpreting signals from North Korea in the wrong way. Speak from both sides of the mouth and nobody knows which is the truth, isn't it?
It is. I think that they play this, ding-dong battle, no pun intended, between Kim Un-yong and his sister. I think he's saying, just because I am interested in talking to you, don't misinterpret that. I'm coming to talk to you from a position of weakness, so don't set any conditions to me. Come and talk to me as an equal.
And from submarines to missiles, the United States is nudging Japan to step up on defense and says that it cannot face China alone in first signs of visible Quad meltdown. So the Quad, as even under Trump, perhaps it was the strongest, especially with Mike Pompeo leading the charge. And now we are seeing visible signs of it in debilitation. Quad cannot function without the complete and full assent of Japan, India, Australia in it. And why is this happening? Is it again internal sabotage because of some malcontents or from China in various countries? Or do you think it is just philosophical differences, sir?
I think we made the first call. In fact, I'm,
Yes,
on the show, and I said that the Quad is once Biden assumes power, his whole approach is going to change. It's no different to any of his other rhetorical policies, which is this is Biden. This is Trump. So I will plague the Quad, but I'll dilute its role. He went on this difference between a bilateral partner versus a trading partner, and he was focused. Biden and his team was more focused around Japan and Korea because they've been long-standing partners. The fact that he's now pushing Japan to get itself organized with its military, be it submarines, be it aircraft carriers, and be it other types of missiles, is a reflection that he thinks that it is United States and Japan that is going to rule the roost. But on the contrary, the leadership has actually come from Australia and India and Australia taking much more coordinated effort, and Japan because of Suge issues, Suge being quite weak, holding on to the power, and he hasn't won an election. You find that Japan has taken a little bit of a backseat as the days have progressed, and you can also see Britain and France taking much more active role within the Quad architecture. Having said that, India had Indian Ocean 2-day exercises. India is just kicked off 2-day exercises with the United States. So clearly the leader in that part of the pack is India, but it is India within the context of minus Quad.
And while all this is happening in ASEAN, the Association for Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN defends its Indo-Pacific centrality between Quad and China as Singapore defense minister spoke about the meeting of all powers be. With your permission, sir, I'm going to put up a chart here that shows the ASEAN, how it sees itself in the Quad
Yeah.
and as things play out. I have that chart up here, sir, so you can talk to it.
Well, when you take a look at the chart, you find right in the center is the ASEAN countries. Who are the countries who are most impacted by Indo-Pacific and by the South China Sea and Taiwan and East Asia issues? It is ASEAN. Or you take the Malacca Strait, again, it is ASEAN countries which are at the epicenter of the issue. So what ASEAN is saying is we preserve our integrity, we have worked together in a collaborative manner, so we will continue to do that. So, okay, Quad, you have a loosely architected structure, then you want to be part of it. So we'll invite you to this defense ministers meeting so we can have some kind of norms established, rules established, how we navigate this out the water. So you have in the first perimeter the Quad countries. Then you have the Quad plus countries like France and Korea and so on. They're all now part of this broader architecture of how Indian Ocean, Indo-Pacific, South China, all that would be coordinated because that is the fulcrum point for three important things. One is trade, second is natural gas, and third is the other resources that are floating around. So effectively, the defense ministers meeting that happened earlier and more information is beginning to trickle out. You can see, again, the Quad has been relegated to the backseat and respective loosely coordinated and tightly coupled countries like ASEAN or groups are holding the meetings and trying to bring the various parties together. In fact, a very profound statement from the Singapore defense minister, which is to say, we are all here. So we are talking to China, we're talking to the United States, we're talking to Japan, we're talking to India. We're also talking to the other nations which matter, such as UK, France, and Korea, etc., is a reflection that this is the forum that must come together to address the issues.
And the COVID variant called Delta Plus is now cited in 10 or more nations. Sridharji, this is now taking a more mainstream role. Will United States also be one of those things that is US going to be facing a new wave? What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, Dr. Fauci has answered the question, which is to say that the Delta variant already is cited in United States. So the greatest risk from pandemic recovery is going to be determined by how profound the impact of Delta variant is going to be in United States. So they've already made. So you can see the countries. China is impacted because they have canceled the flights from Shenzhen to Beijing because that area seems to be affected. It is breaking news last night, this morning. So clearly China is, and South and Southeast China has been affected. We have talked about that. India has seen early. Now US has seen, the Delta variants. UK is news to me. So therefore, apparently UK has got the Delta variants. Obviously, Japan is a big problem. If Japan has got the Delta variant, the Olympics, yesterday we talked about the decision not to have Olympics, but with no spectators. But some of these European countries like Switzerland, Portugal, Russia, Poland, Nepal, one can understand adjacent to India, but all seems to show the signs of the Delta variant. I also heard Indonesia, there was a little bit of a shutdown. I was speaking with someone in the early hours of this morning from Indonesia, and the offices were shut down. So it seems to be this Delta variant is now slowly but surely coming into the foray, and China is not exempted either.
And Lithuania donates COVID vaccines to Taiwan, and German industry asks the government to confront China on human rights. So we have this interesting situation in Germany wherein the heir apparent to Angela Merkel has openly said that we should be friends with China. So there is the governing body or the people who are anointed to be the successors who are taking a very pro-China stand. But now we are seeing that the German industry, which is one of the biggest industry bodies, I think, is asking its government to say, no, you have to confront China on human rights. So where do you think this is going to end? Is Germany going to be, which has been the last holdout of supporting China, are they also turn face, sir?
I doubt whether the German government would, socialist government, would turn its tide against China. So I very much doubt. The industry is naturally impacted. They're using human rights, but their concern is that the German Chinese industry is going to railroad its way, and you may begin to see the core competence of Germany diluted, which is manufacturing and exports. They are a powerhouse in automotive and several, high tech and high end,
Heavy engineering stuff, right?
right? So it could be, it's a big impact. So I think there is going to be this clash, but eventually, Germany is a small nation. Well, we have also covered in DGI some of the ports that we've opened up, which will connect directly from the port of Shanghai and to the upper ports of Germany, and then providing the gateway into Europe via the road system. That's very well networked in Europe.
And the election of Raisi in Iran is unlikely to change the dynamics of nuclear talks, while the Israeli Defense Forces chief Kohavi warns US against rejoining the 2015 nuclear deal. Drone attack is said to have targeted US forces in Iraq close to the Baghdad International Airport. So this is something that is again developing news. So let's take the two different things. Israel is saying you should not be engaging. US is probably not going to listen to Israel. That is continuing. But the new, even more extreme right stand leader in Iran is saying things that perhaps are not going to be music to the US's ears.
I call the three I's. Okay, Israel, Iraq, and Iran. The three I's, which are like the three vertices of a triangle, is going to be problematic. Iran has proxies working and directly against I, which is the Israel. Then you have Iraq, which is where the US forces are. You have Iran directly involved in Iraq, also the its proxy forces within Iraq. So this triangle is going to be the problematic, along with the Sahel region in Africa, which we alluded to. These are the hot points, and none of the decisions that are policy making decisions that are being made in the United States is anything that is looking like mitigating any of the challenges. The fact is, this is the 45th or 46th drone attack that has happened, proximus to the U.S. forces and U.S. airbase. So it's a worrying sign. Whether the United States will worry about this or completely abdicate its responsibility in South China Sea remains a big question, sir.
Now, one thing that the Biden administration has not explained is the need for going back to the Iran deal. Why? Why are you doing this? It's not as if Iran has been asking or pushing you, at least not in your own left supported media. I didn't see any Iran request. So why is this government so hell-bent on making this deal? Is this again going back to my hypothetical checklist where everybody who has supported you or helped you get elected, you have to just keep on ticking, okay, this favor for this person, this favor for this person, this favor for this person. What is that is what going on? Sridharji, your thought before we go on to US news.
I'll give you two direct, blunt reasons. Okay, first, this is Biden administration number one, Obama administration number three. So every policy that you see here is basically making sure that re-legitimizing the Obama administration policy. Obama did the Iran deal, so therefore you go back to the table and redo. That's number one. Number two, there is much stronger Iranian influence on ground, lobbied very heavily in the US elections, many of them aligned with Democratic Party. You are aware of many of the NGOs which are present. So you're beginning to see the tilt of that and the impact of that in the policy formulation. Okay, so I don't want to mention which NGOs, but everybody who lives in the United States know about it. That is what you're seeing here. Doesn't matter which policy, Obamacare, infrastructure, what you call this racial theory, broad socialization, foreign policy, all we are reenacting Obama administration's policies in within Biden.
And let's move on to US news. Fauci declares Delta variant the greatest threat to the nation's efforts to eliminate COVID as US battles over 5 million active cases against a total infected base of 34.426 million. Now take a look at this, and then in light of the new thing where Daszak has been taken out of the panel on UN for COVID because of conflict of interest. Is this now going to reach the door of this person, Fauci, and is he going to step down? Is this going to be reason? Your thoughts, sir?
I don't think that when you look at the number of people from United States as well who are involved, from academic and from research within WHO and funding Wuhan facilities by virtue of grants, I think that it is impossible to see, unless they conduct a complete and thorough investigation, which the House GOP has demanded, for which there seems to be no action forthcoming. Okay, the House representatives comprising of Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are more focused on their progressive agenda. They couldn't care anything about COVID. They couldn't care anything about anything else. They only want reform of elections, racial theory, defunding police, climate, unlimited budgets. So they're in an entirely different plateau compared to what is confronting them here. Okay, so that is why there will be no resolution and there will be no enforcement, and Republicans can go on shouting. Fauci will continue to be the forefront of making announcements, and more discoveries will come out. I don't know whether we're going, maybe we'll talk Peter Daszak tomorrow rather than today, but most striking is what the data is not being articulated is United States still has 5 million active cases, folks, 5 million, of which California has close to 1.3 million. 1.3 million active cases in one state. And United States, we were the first country to vaccinate. And there are states where average number of active cases is between 250 to 500,000. Maryland has got 400,000. Washington, D.C. has got 200,000 plus. Kentucky has got 200,000 plus. So you have a vast number of states still floating around, and only close to 50-60% of the population vaccinated with one single dose. United States has got a major problem looming ahead.
And Senator Manchin agrees to join Democrats in supporting the voting bill, while the GOP is all poised to block the election bill in the Senate. Can they filibuster it so that it will not pass, or will the Vice President's casting vote help usher in a new voting bill? Your thoughts?
Well, the story is she was there and she presided over the meeting. So they couldn't break the filibuster rule. Now there is going to be 2 days of hearings. Everybody will be in the House shouting, making their presence felt, which is to say, this is the problem with the democracy. We are a democratically elected. We have won the percentage and we have won the maximum number of the representative votes from the states, and we cannot get our act. Filibuster is a nonsense. On the contrary, you have Republican, who was trying to usurp presidency, having not got the percentage and having not got the electoral college votes, and they are trying to block the agenda that we are going. So this is going to be the fight that is going to happen. Whether filibuster will be removed or not, we will soon see. At least to the extent that Manchin and Sinema, they are basically trying to say, no, filibuster is not going to be burst. Let's wait and see. I think the drama is unfolding, sir.
And in my opinion, sir, and I have been saying this many, many times now, election to the United States has to be done. The reforms have to be done, but it has to be done in a way that it is absolutely bulletproof. If you want to call yourself as the technologically most advanced nation on earth, then you have to act like one. In my opinion, first of all, whatever the conduct of election is, it has to adhere 100% to the United States Constitution. What does it say? It says that only US citizens can vote. First, number one, only US citizens should be allowed to vote. Number two, we have to make sure that every citizen needs to vote. This is a responsibility. It's a duty as a citizen of this country to vote. So we have to make sure that whatever the process that we usher in will make sure that every person has to vote, otherwise you impose fines on them. Third thing is that you need to be able to have a way which is consistent across the states. You cannot allow some county to change some rules, something else. So it has to be centralized, and it needs to use some technology such as the distributed ledger technology or blockchain, so that it has the complete audit trail, incontrovertible. Anybody can go and look at that with sufficient permissions to know what happened. A voter is allowed to change his or her mind any number of times until the last vote that they cast, which becomes a vote. This is my simple theory. I think both Democrats and Republicans will get behind it. I don't know your thoughts, sir, but at least I'll let you have your thought before we go to the next line item.
I think that we have not shared that chart because it's not a public, it's a private exchange. Very rightly said. What we are fighting is a citizen to vote and an ID to vote, a mandate to vote, and only one vote per person. This basically should be the norm, not 2 votes per person. People who have died coming and voting, and anybody who is living here can vote. Anybody who doesn't present an ID can vote. All these kinds of things that they are trying to, bring about, without, and then the integrity of the electoral system, because, there has to be a fair and just conduct of the election process. This has been the problem. There has been very differentiated approaches. Similarly, depending on whether you're a Democrat running the legislature, or whether you're a Democrat running the judicial system, or whether you're a Republican running the legislature, or whether you're a Republican running the judiciary or the governorship, if there is going to be this trifecta misalignment, then without a comprehensive and consistent policy, then it is going to be subjective interpretation depending on your, political, ideology, which never results in a consistent and uniform outcome from the elections. And I think you have nailed by listing all those kinds of issues. This is the problem that United States is facing. 3 important people, but if they differ, then you get a sub-marginal outcome.
And GOP senators stare into Biden National Security Advisor for calling Nord Stream 2 AG a Swiss company. I thought this was an American company, sir.
No, Nord Stream 2 is a Russian company. That's the gas
Russian company
that is coming. You remember that one of the areas, one of the pipes, while Biden passed executive orders to unilaterally, stop gas and energy pipeline activity in the United States, he allowed exemption for Nord Stream 2. And that's a pipe that goes via Germany into Europe and heats up the houses. He gave an exemption. So Jack Sullivan, when he was questioned when he was going through the interview, I think it's the Andrea Mitchell show, he was asked the question. So now he mistakes, some people can mistake. So therefore he mistook, and he said, we gave exemption to 2 companies and both were Swiss companies. And so this was pointed out, what about Nord Stream 2? I said, both were Swiss companies. It's conceivable that how can a national security advisor commit such a blunder, but these things happen. So that's what this whole news item is, that when you have policymakers not being cognizant of what they stood for, what they voted, and what they didn't vote for, and what they approved, we have such problems, looming up. Then you can imagine Biden signs a paper. He's told sign a paper. Oh, okay, that's a Swiss, so I'll sign the paper. So this was a very big topic that came up in the discussion. We have covered at least in 2-3 times in DGI.
And critical race theory explodes from an obscure debate to the front lines of culture war. Again, this is another one of those progressive agenda. And what difference this is going to make to the overall education of a child? I wonder, your thoughts, sir, is there going to be a balanced counter view also presented? Are the children able to be, will be mature enough to understand these things? Your thoughts, sir?
I think first and foremost, this will again go down on the political ideology. If you are a democratic state and if your local administration is democratic, then the schools are going to be forced to follow this particular curriculum which is being introduced. So you are free, some of these things how to be presented in the parents and community gathering. So you are beginning to see uh, parents and people and communities taking both sides of the view. People saying, this is somehow underplayed, and now this has to be brought to the front of the surface so people can. It's almost like you want to make people feel guilty, guilty, guilty. Okay, that's one part. The history is not hidden. The history is very clear, and it is documented. But people can have differentiated views. Is India going to talk about India Mughals again and again and again? Invasion, invasion, invasion. It's over. It's done. We got to move on. And you find in community things, boards now popping up all over the place. So it is now the front and center of the issue from obscurity, because this is going to be a mainstream policy. The main contention is basically the minds of the children right at the school is being corrupted or is being retuned without the consent and awareness of the parents. That's the single biggest issue.
And the Senate confirms Kiran Ahuja, a nominee with critical race theory ties, to run federal personnel office. So again, this is playing out even in the administration, isn't it?
It is. She's supposed to have been associated with NGOs, who have been part of the critical race theory propagation or advocacy groups, and that came up in the hearing. But how many you are going to block? So she's going to run the personnel office. So the general prejudice or the general objection is going to be that Tom Cotton raised the issue, which is to say, okay, now we are going to have entire Washington D.C. Inundated with these type of people, advocating this theory. So that was the main objection, but she's confirmed.
And I'm not going back to work. And Indiana residents file lawsuit after governor ends the unemployment benefits. We have talked about this in the past, that people are not willing to go back to work. And as luck would have it, China would keep on introducing new variants, and then every time that it looks like US is going to lift his head up and start working, again you'll have another variant, and US has done nothing about it. They haven't fired the guy who is colluding with them. I don't know where this is headed, sir. I mean, this is disaster 1.0.
Nothing. It's basically saying people are, if there was a theory, now it is wide open. People who are receiving unemployment benefits, this goes on till September. They're saying, I'm getting money till September. Why should I come to work? I'm not coming to work. Full stop.
And consumers and not companies are bearing the brunt of inflation. I mean, this is beginning to play out. You go to the grocery store, you go to Costco, you buy online stuff, you will start seeing the rise in prices. And this is percolating through all sectors of economy. So I think this is going to be the biggest Waterloo, I think, of President Biden, because there's too much money chasing too few things, and also there is also these artificial scarcities plus the fear of another wave. I think I can just go on. So you wrap up, and then we can go on to Indian news, sir.
I think my observation is Biden is going to start with running Obama administration 3. He probably is going to finish with a Carter administration, right? So the Jimmy Carter administration I'm talking about, when inflation shot up. That's what we see. It's very clear. Interest rates are down. Plenty of money that is borrowed is put into the system. People are not working. So therefore, naturally, the prices has to go up. That is the rudimentary principle. When you have excess liquidity, low interest rates, everybody wants to buy the same house. Everybody wants to rent the same apartment. And what happens? It's a demand. So therefore, the price goes up. So what that results in is inflation. So Biden has committed that he's going to push $6 trillion every year for the next 4 years, or until his term completes, and then to the next term if he gets elected. So your point is well made, and I think we are getting into a very vicious cycle. And Delta variant comes in, more trouble looming for us with balance sheet bloating.
And let's take a look at India-related news. Indian Prime Minister attending the G7 meeting online, and his dialogue with France, United Kingdom, Italy, and Germany to present a unified stand against China is further edging India and the European Union closer to an economic and political deal. I think this is a good thing. I'll just go on to the next item also. India is all set to kickstart a 2-day air combat exercise with the United States in the Indian Ocean commencing on the 23rd, which is today. US Navy's Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group, which is currently in the Indian Ocean, will be participating. You will not read this in any mainstream media news in India. I wonder why. So, your thoughts?
No, my thoughts are that EU is the India EU is EU clearly sees that it needs alternate markets, and India is a big market, and there's a general alignment. Whatever one may want to call, India is somewhere caught between free market and its socialistic principles by just sheer size and the virtue of the population. Europe, very similar. Most of the countries have a free market principles, but again, very much socialistic principles in terms of the dispensation. So there is a natural harmony, and EU is a much stronger partner and more reliable partner. When you look at within the context of United States. Again, United States government and United States business are two different entities. People don't understand, and still in India, people don't get this point. United States business ecosystem works differently to the United States government. So United States, even here, economy is decoupled from the government only to the extent of interest rates that is set by the Fed. So I think to summarize this, the fact that on the defense, India continues to work with US. On the trade, it continues to expand the scope of its activity, both with EU as well as with UK, because UK is one of the prime partners. And the fact that when you look at India's defense or other ties, which is a big spend, who are the big players? Russia, Israel, France. Where are they all from? Barring Israel, everybody else is from Europe and Britain. Okay, and then US is slowly making up the list. So I think augurs well.
India electrifies 19 villages in Siachen with renewable power, taking Ladakh closer to carbon neutrality goal. That's a very impressive achievement because we know how hard the terrain is to be able to erect solar panels there and being able to consistently extract reliable power. Perhaps they also have a way to store it for the night. I don't know. It looks very good, sir, and I'll go on because we're running a little bit behind. Indian Railways built road over bridge on dedicated freight corridor at Valsad in a record time of 20 days. So now what you usually associate with armies when they have to build bridges in a matter of days, now Indian Railways is able to do that. This is a very impressive achievement that India can put down, very important things like rail lines in such a short time.
Well, I think that I continue to emphasize Indian Railways and infrastructure because this has now become the hub and spoke and architecture of the Indian transportation, logistics, and other. Doesn't matter whether it is COVID, doesn't matter whether it is army, doesn't matter whether it is grain, doesn't matter whether it is manufacturing goods, doesn't matter whether it is infrastructure. It seems to be the epicenter. And one has to give enormous amount of credit to Piyush Goyal as the railways minister, the transformative nature of the work that he has done in elevating Indian Railways to be the front and center of the economic transformation, albeit slowly taking place in India.
And Covaxin demonstrates 77.8% efficacy in phase 3 trials, while India demonstrates that 10 to 12 million vaccines per day is an achievable goal. So this is, I think, the first time that India has managed to do this kind of number, vaccinations in a day. Although people question that your capacity is only 4 million and in a month, and how can you have so many vaccines? We don't know all the details, but certainly the website from government says that they have done this. Your thoughts, sir?
My thoughts are twofold. Again, in DGI, we have covered this. 100 million vaccines is what, I think it's 100 million. I get confused between 10 crores and 7 crores. You can interpret in million. I get confused, but 10 crores is what the Serum Institute has committed in terms of moving forward with its capacity. 7 crores is what the the biolabs in Hyderabad has committed. This excludes all other manufacturers who are coming up. So you are talking about, at least 20 to 22 crores when you include J&J, when you include that new vaccine that is coming from DRDO, and then when you include Eli Lilly's program. So therefore, there is, again, you please go back and track the patterns of the vaccinations. India has consistently done somewhere north of 3.5 to 5 million. Now, yesterday they elevated themselves to 8.6 million vaccines, you translate that into lakhs and crores. I am not very good at this translation. So 8.6 million vaccinations was done yesterday. The numbers are visible and the statewide breakup is visible. So therefore, the point is that can they reach a 10 million vaccination? The answer is yes. They have done this before. They have got the logistics in place. I don't want to waste. I know I'm cognizant of the time. So yes, the numbers are achievable.
Yes, indeed. 7 crores is 70 million, 10 crores is 100 million. So let's take a look at markets news now. And markets climb for the second day and Nasdaq hits an all-time high amid Bitcoin comeback. Quickly, sir, let's take a look at market, your thoughts, and then we can call it a wrap.
Well, the markets are back up. Nasdaq, it was the Nasdaq day. It rose, 111 points yesterday. All the market indices grew. Now, if I look at Dow, if I look at S&P, they are back to their 10% levels. Nasdaq here today is around 11%. So, I think the money in the ecosystem, that simply implies that this, there will be what you call the volatility in the markets, and there'll be shifting patterns of market gyrations. So that's just a reflection of where the markets are. But what is important is, if we take a look at the Brent prices and the Brent and oil, they are inching towards that 75. Brent has crossed 75, and the $100 next year is within the realms. This is not something that I'm unable to reconcile. What kind of economic outcome that is going to create is unclear at this stage. While this level of inflation, the 30-year Treasury rate is now at its lowest point at 2.08. It went up to 2.8 and it has now come back to 2.08. The 10-year has went up to 1.7, has now come back to 1.46. There's clearly something wrong. Whether it is, what exactly is going on here will determine the outcome in terms of the economic consequences as we move forward. That's my observation on the market side.
And with that, our today's episode comes to a close. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe to our channel. Namaskar.
Namaskar and have a good day. Once again, apologies. We went past the 30-minute mark and, we spent 37. We spent a lot of time in many topics.
Thank you, sir.